I was determined to survive. I remember a pivotal moment when I was crying, one of those very ugly cries. And it was the ones that I learned how to cry in silence because I didn't want to bother my parents, because my brother and I became casualties of their internal wars. They were into heavy drug use, alcoholism, and everything else in between.
Talk about ACEs for people that are brand new to that term.
ACE is ACE, which is Adverse Childhood Experience, tool that people use to understand more about the trauma. If you're a 4 or higher, you're more likely to have health issues, engage in drug use, self-harm, and so forth. I landed at a 9.
You're a 9. You don't look like a 9.
Exactly.
That's the biggest compliment you could receive.
I had a North Star. I had a goal. I focused on that.
There's some people listening, they're like, that's amazing. Your circumstances didn't change at all. You still had to spend another decade plus in that environment.
Correct.
Talk about how you were able to do that and still grow and eventually grow out of your environment. Welcome back to the 5-Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and we have a special guest in studio today, Cherri Kulp, who is an incredible consultant and coach, and we connected here in the last year. Wanted to invite you on to be a part of our show, so thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And if you just tuned into the show, I want to remind you that you can actually watch this like on a TV screen or a tablet, anywhere that podcasts are streamed. You can do this on YouTube at our YouTube channel at The 5-Star Life. You can also watch us we have this new platform partner called Your Home TV. It's really cool. Check it out. So we'll put like all the episodes, the archives. You can go check those out. So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share this. And if you're brand new to 5-Star Life, I want to encourage you to go to our website, 5starlife.org, to learn more about this mission of changing the face of education, of sports, and of culture. And if you aren't making a difference in some way, I encourage you to go check that out, because there's so many ways to get involved. We're going to have a great show, though. Again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be
All right.
here.
So tell me and tell our audience about UnEarthed and what you do.
Yes. So I am the principal coach, founder and CEO of UnEarthed Coaching and Consulting. And I help executives, entrepreneurs, and purpose-driven leaders change that crippling mindset to one that allows them to have greater confidence in themselves, greater resilience, and to create growth, sustainable growth, whether that's personally or in their professional careers.
Which is exactly why we connected so much.
Yes.
I remember sitting down at a coffee shop with you and just learning more about you. And I want to share that with our audience a little bit. Like, you are, Cherri Kulp, the CEO of UnEarthed, the founder of it, the visionary behind it. You're helping so many people. But what's really incredible to me is where you started. Just before the show, you mentioned your ACE score.
Yes.
Talk about ACEs for people that are brand new to that term.
Yes. ACE is ACE, which is Adverse Childhood Experience. And it is a tool that people use to understand more about the trauma that individuals have experienced prenatal to 18 years of age. And so I've had the opportunity to take that. It's just 10 questions. And if you're a 4 or higher, you're more likely to have health issues, mental, physical, and engage in very difficult situations, whether it's engage in drug use, self-harm, and so forth. And so when I took the questionnaire, I landed at a 9. And when I shared that with someone a few weeks ago, they said, "You don't look like a 9." And in my mind, I said, neither did them Hebrew boys, those who were in the furnace, because I wasn't alone in that journey. And I believe that the gift that God gives us when we overcome things is the gift of wisdom. And that wisdom is not to be held within ourselves, but to be shared with others. And so I know that I am not alone. I know there's others who experience trauma, and it shapes how they think about themselves and the world around them. And I truly believe that once you understand who you are and whose you are, you're going to make better decisions. You're going to operate at your higher self. And when you do, we all benefit from the fruits of that labor. And so I tell my clients that I'm in this dark cave with you, but we're coming out alive, right? I either take my clients to one of two places, either to their Garden of Eden, which is the very beginning, or to the scene of the crime, the event that took place that shifted their perspective. My business is the core of my business is be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I found that out very early when I was about 7 years old. And I would tell myself, it's not my external environment that impacts me, but it's my internal. And there's an African proverb.
By the way,
Please.
I'm sorry to jump in. So at 7,
yes,
you learned that. How did that come about?
It was because I was determined to survive. And I wasn't looking for God. God was looking for me. And I remember a pivotal moment when I was crying, one of those very ugly cries. And it was the ones that I learned how to cry in silence, because I didn't want to bother my parents, because my brother and I became casualties of their internal wars. They were into heavy drug use, alcoholism, and everything else in between. And so at that time, I didn't feel I had anyone to depend on. And as I was crying, I felt the move of God. And in that moment, I felt God in that fiery furnace with me. And I've never looked back, never looked back. And again, I believe that God got me through, not just for myself, but for others, to give hope. And so I enjoy what I do.
Wow. So, so many people that I interact with, often if they're an A7, an 8, not too many 9s, often they're unaware of even what they are.
Yeah.
Right. And usually it's they're talking about what they've been through to justify where they are.
Right.
So the fact that at 7 you had this God moment, this epiphany, that you realized you still hold the power. That's the message of 5-star to kids.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a victim.
Absolutely.
You can live a 5-star life, regardless of your circumstances.
Yes.
So I love, how cool is it that someone literally says this to you? Like, Cherri, you're a 9. You don't look like a 9.
Exactly.
That's the biggest compliment you could receive.
It is. And, as I look back, I think about the scripture, choose ye this day who you will serve. And what I mean by that is I chose victory. I did not choose my environment. At that moment, I knew I deserved better. I knew of God's promises to me, and he has a reputation that he has to uphold when it comes to those promises. And it's a lot of self-talk. And that's what I work with my clients on. There is this African proverb that says, if you can conquer the enemy within, the enemy without can do you no harm, right? And again, we're not fighting against flesh and blood, things that are in high places.
So, there's some people listening, they're like, that's amazing. I wish that was my story. But Cherri's some super freak that just figured this out. She has all this discipline. She had this epiphany from God. I didn't. So to walk us through how your circumstances didn't change at all.
Right.
You're 7 years old.
Right.
You still had to spend another decade
more
plus in that environment.
Correct.
Talk about how you were able to do that and still grow and eventually grow out of your environment.
Yes. A lot of it is because I had a North Star. I had a goal. I focused on that. And I am the type of person, if you give me a goal, I'm going to laser in on that. It is not the obstacles that are around me that I am paying attention to. It is that goal that is before me, that hope, right? That joy. That is the fuel. And
So you identified a vision.
I did.
You had some talk about that. You're probably going to before I interrupted you.
Yeah. The vision was one, to get out of the house. My parents actually did not become clean until I was 24. And there's this thing that's called being a dry drunk, meaning that you still have some of the behaviors of those when you were on drugs and or alcohol. So there was those things that I had to deal with as well. But I stayed focused. I stayed focused on the mark. And vision is so important. To have a clear vision is huge.
Wow. Okay. We got to take a quick commercial break here in a moment. But Cherri, thanks for joining us. This story, I know there's people listening, and I want to talk to our listening audience to say, if you're listening to this live on the radio, I encourage you to text your friends and family to tune in. She's going to stick around for another segment. If you're watching this, share this with someone that you know. They've been through the fire, but unlike Cherri, they smell like smoke. They look like smoke. Right? This is going to give them hope. So I really want to encourage you to tune into this. We're going to take a quick break and come back right after this. Go to 5starlife.org to learn more. Clubs are for those students where you have an area of Summit that you want to tap into more. So we're having an archery club this summer with multiple cohorts that you can sign up for. An equine club if you want to dive into the barn and everything that has to offer. We're also offering a blacksmithing club. This is an exclusive program, one-on-one training with professionals. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We're already half full on registration. So if you want to be hammering away at steel, making cool things with your hands, and working in that, you have to register now. To learn more about 5-Star Life, visit 5starlife.org today. Hey, we're back with Cherri Kulp of UnEarthed. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
In the first segment, you were starting to talk about, the fact that you were a 9 ACE score, but nobody would know it.
Right.
Nobody would know your story. I think that's one of the most interesting things when you look at people who've been through crazy trauma. There are those who you would never know it, and then you find out, you're like, oh my goodness, there's a story there. And then there are those that they're still in it. Even though they're no longer in the situation, it's in them.
Yes.
Talk more about how you got that out of you. Talked about a dry drunk. You talked about some of those things. How did you get that out of your system?
Yes. A lot of that is self-talk. So the narrative that is in loop in our mind, right? And I am a huge fan of words. Life and death is in the power of the tongue, right? And as a poet, as a spoken word artist, I am very careful of the words that I use and the words I speak over my life, right? And it reminds me of the story of when Moses had that conversation with God about his people. They was tripping. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. And God was like, tell them the I am sent you. And there's this quote that I like to attach to that says, the words that follow I am follow you. And what got me through was being mindful and intentional of the words that follow I am. I am victorious. I am a conqueror. I am deserving of this. I am deserving of my birthright. And those are the things that got me through. It is that inner voice that propels us into the level that we deserve to be in.
What would you say to people that maybe this is a lot for them? Because I run to people that are like, words, they have this old adage, right? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but they can never hurt me. Words are not that big a deal. They're just words. What would you tell them just to, if you could pause and just have a conversation just about the power of words? What would you say?
Everything around us was created because of words. Words are not just this invisible thing. Someone had to have a conversation about podcasts. Someone had to have a conversation about the structure of a building, right? Our words are very powerful. And once we understand that, we can use that to our advantage. And yes, it's a lot of work, but staying in the same mindset is a lot of work as well. Choose your hard. Which hard do you want to deal with? And again, people call me the quote queen because I'm always dropping quotes. But there's a quote from Les Brown who says, if you choose what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you choose what is hard, your life will be easy. And you have to choose those difficult things to have an easy life. And that difficulty may be facing the fact that I am a survivor of trauma. But you can be a survivor, but it's better to be a thriver of trauma, right?
Why do you think some people choose to stay in the trauma?
Because it's normal. We stay in what makes us comfortable, even if it's harmful to us. We are social beings, and so we like to feel connected to communities. And if we choose communities that centered around toxicity, centered around things that are harmful to us, we'll stay because we don't want to be excommunicated. So it's easy to stay in what makes you comfortable, even if it is uncomfortable.
So it's apathy. This is what I've always known. So you'd mentioned vision. You had a vision that went beyond where you were.
Yes.
So I think that's one of your keys, obviously. But is it also, you talked about just we want to fit in, we want to be a part of a community.
Yes, I do.
So there's also some fear there?
Yes, there
Combination
is fear.
of fear and apathy?
Absolutely. And also confidence. If you don't believe you deserve the best, you're not going to go towards the best, right? And so as social beings, the fear of rejection is very real. It's crippling. And it takes courage to step outside of what you have defined as normal. It takes strength. It takes vision. It takes confidence to do that. And it takes community, right? I didn't get here alone. There was always a ram in that bush. And they're all around us. We just got to look for them.
What would you say to people who they don't like where they're at? And by the way, we've kind of rooted this conversation in the place of people who have suffered trauma. But as I'm listening, this applies to everybody and anybody who, because they're very successful people, right? There's levels of success.
Yes.
So we can get stuck at this level because we're comfortable.
Yes.
Right? So it really applies to everybody.
Absolutely.
But what would you say to those people that maybe they're stuck and they're not sure how to get unstuck and to overcome the fear?
I would say acknowledge the fear. Our brains are designed to protect us from harm, psychological harm as well. And it's scary to face our fears, right? And we as humans have limited emotions, limited understanding of our emotions.
Yeah.
And sitting face to face with that fear and understanding that fear is, again, I'm quoting from someone, FEAR, false expectations appearing real, right? And having that tough conversation with yourself. Or if you can't do it on your own, ask a trusted ally who can have that conversation with you. And that is a lot of the work that I do, creating that psychologically safe space for people to have that tough conversation with themselves. And I tell people that as their coach, I don't have the answers, you do. I just ask the right questions, right?
That's good.
Thank you. But again, it's about facing that fear. That's the first step. Acknowledging, I'm afraid of this. Why am I afraid of this? Who is popping up, right? There's different ages that pops up. Is it the 8-year-old self that's popping up? Is it the 12? Is it the 16? Is it the 24-year-old? And why is this popping up right now? And I tell people, and this is the work that I've done myself, my childhood name growing up was Nina. And so when Nina pops up, I tell her, the adult is in the room. I got this. Go ahead and color. I'll talk to you later. We're going to watch some Bugs Bunny later. We're going to handle that later. But the adult is in the room, the one who pays mortgage, the one who is taking care of things in business, right? Who is a wife, right? Who's a bonus mommy, right? That is who is present right now. And again, it goes back to the power of words, excuse me.
Are most people even aware of what you're talking about? I mean, I talk to a lot of people, and I'm not even sure if they're aware that there is some kind of fear holding them back because they've lived in that cycle so long. So how do you become aware of maybe the cycle you're in?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think there are hints of awareness, but we cover it with things that we do to self-medicate. And that self-medication may look like drugs, alcohol, addiction of any kind, shopping, bearing into social media to escape. Escapism is very real. And it's because we're trying to stifle that voice that we're not ready to hear. And it's a scary voice to us. And again, that's where it takes finding that ally, finding that trusted person who can be there in that space with you when you allow that voice to rise to the occasion.
And there's people listening thinking, I have some fears that I don't want to face. I've been running from them. I've been escaping. Like, how do you, like, walk me through how to face a fear? Obviously, that you've created a habit where you're like, oh, fear? No. We're gonna address this. We're gonna find out why this is here. Right. So now it's just natural. What's the first step for somebody?
Again, here come another quote. There is this quote that states, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. It's all about perspective. What is this teaching me? What fruits will I gain from attacking this fear, right? Who will I be on the other side when I conquer this fear? And fun fact is it used to be crippling, a fear of public speaking. But I know that God has given me a gift. And my fear of not helping others outweighs the fear of me speaking in public.
Wow, it's amazing because we're both people. I never ever desired to be a speaker, a communicator, to be in front of people ever. I was afraid of it, but I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting how God uses people who humble themselves and develop into the people that can maybe serve in that way. So, absolutely. All right, we're out of time. I wish we're going to bring you back though soon.
Happy to be back.
Thank you so much for joining again. Cherri Kulp with UnEarthed, coaching and consulting. I'm a huge fan. We've brought her in to do different things with 5 Star. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.